What is unconditional surrender? If one surrenders oneself, there will be no one to ask questions or to be thought of. Either the thoughts are eliminated by holding on to the root thought I, or one surrenders oneself unconditionally to the higher power. These are the only two ways for realization. Does not total or complete surrender require that one should not have left even the desire for liberation or God? Complete surrender does require that you have no desire of your own. You must be satisfied with whatever God gives you, and that means having no desires of your own. Now that I am satisfied on that point, I want to know what the steps are by which I could achieve surrender. There are two ways. One is looking into the source of I and merging into that source. The other is feeling I am helpless by myself. God alone is all-powerful, and except by throwing myself completely on Him, there is no other means of safety for me. By this method, one gradually develops the conviction that God alone exists and that the ego does not count. Both methods lead to the same goal. Complete surrender is another name for jnana, or liberation. I find surrender is easier. I want to adopt that path. By whatever path you go, you will have to lose yourself in the one. Surrender is complete only when you reach the stage, thou art all and thy will be done. The state is not different from jnana. In Soham, the affirmation of I am He, there is Dvaita, dualism. In surrender, there is Advaita, non-dualism. In the reality, there is neither Dvaita or Advaita, but that which is. Surrender appears easy because people imagine once they say with their lips, I surrender, and put their burdens on their Lord, they can be free and do what they like. But the fact is that you can have no likes or dislikes after your surrender. Your will should become completely non-existent, the Lord's will taking its place. The death of the ego in this way brings about a state which is not different from jnana. So by whatever path you may go, you must come to jnana, or oneness. What is the best way of killing the ego? To each person, that way is the best which appears easiest or appeals most. All the ways are equally good as they lead to the same goal, which is the merging of ego in the self. What the bhakta devotee calls surrender, the man who does vichara calls jnana. Both are trying only to take the ego back to the source, from which it sprang, and make it merge there. Cannot grace hasten such competence in a seeker? Leave it to God. Surrender unreservedly. One of two things must be done. Either surrender because you admit your inability and require a higher power to help you, or investigate the cause of misery by going to the source and merging into the self. Either way, you will be free from misery. God never forsakes one who has surrendered. What is the drift of the mind after surrender? Is the surrendered mind raising the question? By constantly desiring to surrender, I hope that increasing grace is experienced. Surrender once for all and be done with the desire. So long as the sense of doership is retained, there is the desire. That is also personality. If this goes, the self is found to shine forth pure. The sense of doership is the bondage, and not the actions themselves. Be still, and know that I am God. Here stillness is total surrender without a vestige of individuality. Stillness will prevail, and there will be no agitation of mind. Agitation of mind is the cause of desire, the sense of doership and personality. If that is stopped, there is quiet. There, knowing means being. It is not the relative knowledge involving the triads knowledge, knowing, and known. Is the thought I am God or I am the Supreme Being helpful? I am that I am as God. Not thinking I am God. Realize I am and do not think I am. Know I am God. It is said and not think I am God. All talk of surrender is like pinching brown sugar from a brown sugar image of Lord Ganesha and offering it as Naivedya, food offering, to the same Lord Ganesha. You say you offer your body, soul, and all possessions to God. Were they yours, that you could offer them? At best you can only say, I falsely imagined till now that all these which are yours were mine. Now I realize they are yours. I shall no more act as if they are mine. This knowledge that there is nothing but God or self, that I and mine don't exist, and that only the self exists, is jnana. Thus there is no difference between bhakti and jnana. Bhakti is jnana mata, or the mother of jnana. Men of the world that we are, we have some kind of grief or another, and do not know how to get over it. We pray to God and still are not satisfied. What can we do? Trust God. We surrender, but still there is no help. Yes, if you surrender, you must be able to abide by the will of God and not make a grievance of what may not please you. Things may turn out differently from the way they look, apparently. Distress often leads men to faith in God. But we are worldly. There is the wife, there are the children, friends, and relatives. We cannot ignore their existence and resign ourselves to divine will without retaining some little of the personality in us. That means you have not surrendered as professed by you. You must only trust God. Surrender to Him and abide by His will whether He appears or vanishes. Await His pleasure. If you ask Him to do as you please, it is not surrender, but command to Him. You cannot have Him obey you and yet think that you have surrendered. He knows what is best and when and how to do it. Leave everything entirely to Him. His is the burden. You have no longer any cares. All your cares are His. Such is surrender. This is bhakti. Or, inquire to whom these questions arise. Dive deep in the heart and remain as the self. One of these two ways is open to the aspirant. Surrender is impossible. Yes, complete surrender is impossible in the beginning. Partial surrender is certainly possible for all. In course of time, that will lead to complete surrender. Well, if surrender is impossible, what can be done? There is no peace of mind. You are helpless to bring it about. It can be done only by surrender. Is surrender by itself sufficient to reach the self? It is enough that one surrenders oneself. Surrender is to give oneself up to the original cause of one's being. Do not delude yourself by imagining such a source to be some God outside you. Your source is within yourself. Give yourself up to it. That means that you should seek the source and merge in it. They say that one can obtain everything if one takes refuge in God wholly and solely, and without thought of anything else. Does it mean sitting in one place and contemplating God entirely at all times, discarding all thoughts, including even thoughts about food, which is essential for the sustenance of the body? Does it mean that when one gets ill, one should not think of medicine and treatment, but entrust one's health or sickness exclusively to providence? In the Bhagavad Gita it says, the man who sheds all longings and moves without concern, free of the sense of I and mine, he attains peace. It means the discarding of all desires. Therefore, should we devote ourselves exclusively to the contemplation of God and accept food and water only if they are available by God's grace without asking for them? Or does it mean that we should make a little effort? Bhagavan, please explain the secret of the Saranagati, surrender. Saranagati, complete surrender, means to be without any attachment to thoughts. No doubt. But does it mean to discard even thoughts of food and water, which are essential for the sustenance of the physical body? Yes. Should I eat only if I get anything by God's direction, and without my asking for it? Or should I have a little effort? All right, let us take it that what we have to eat comes of its own accord. But even then, who is to eat? Suppose somebody puts it in our mouth. Should we not swallow it at least? Is that not an effort, he asks? If I become sick, should I take medicine? Or should I keep quiet, leaving my health and sickness in the hands of God? In the book Sarana Panchakam, written by Shankara, it is stated that for treatment of the disease called hunger, one should eat food received as alms. But then one must at least go out and beg for it. If all people close their eyes and sit still, saying if the food comes we eat, how is the world to get on? Hence, one must take things as they come in accordance with one's traditions. But one must be free from the feeling that one is doing them oneself. The feeling that I am doing it is the bondage. It is therefore necessary to consider and find out the method whereby such a feeling can be overcome. Instead of doubting as to whether medicine should be administered if one is sick or whether food should be taken if one is hungry, such doubts will continue to come up and will never end. Even such doubts as may I groan if there is pain, may I inhale air after exhaling, also occur. Call it Ishwara, God, or call it karma destiny, some karta, higher power, will carry on everything in this world according to the development of the mind of each individual. If the responsibility is thrown on the higher power, things will go on of their own accord. We walk on this ground. While doing so, do we consider every step whether we raise one leg after the other, or stop at some stage? Isn't the walking done automatically? The same is the case with inhaling and exhaling. No special effort is made to inhale or exhale. The same is the case with this life also. Can we give up anything if we want to, or do anything as we please? Quite a number of things are done automatically without our being conscious of it. Complete surrender to God means giving up all thoughts and concentrating the mind on Him. If we can concentrate on Him, other thoughts disappear. If the actions of the mind, speech, and body are merged with God, all the burdens of our life will be on Him. But is God really the doer of all the actions I perform? The present difficulty is that man thinks he is the doer. But it is a mistake. It is the higher power which does everything, and man is only a tool. If he accepts that position, he is free from troubles, otherwise he courts them. Take, for instance, the sculpted figure at the base of a Gopuram, temple tower, which is made to appear as if bearing the burden of the tower on its shoulder. Its posture and look are a picture of great strain, which gives the impression that it is bearing the weight of the tower. But think, the tower is built on the earth, and it rests on its foundations. The figure is a part of the tower, but it is made to look as if it is bearing the weight of the tower. Is it not funny? so also is the man who takes on himself the sense of doing. Swami, it is good to love God, is it not? Then why not follow the path of love? Who said you couldn't follow it? You can do so. But when you talk of love, there is duality, or is there not? The person who loves and the entity called God who is loved. The individual is not separate from God. Hence, love means one has love towards one's own self. That is why I'm asking you whether God could be worshipped through the path of love. That is exactly what I have been saying. Love itself is the actual form of God. If by saying, I do not love this, I do not love that, you reject all things, that which remains is Swarupa. That is the real form of the self. That is pure bliss. Call it pure bliss, God, Atma, or what you will. That is devotion. That is realization, and that is everything. If you thus reject everything, what remains is the self alone. That is real love. One who knows the secret of that love finds the world itself full of universal love. The experience of not forgetting consciousness alone is the state of devotion, bhakti, which is the relationship of unfading real love. Because the real knowledge of self, which shines as the undivided supreme bliss itself, surges up as the nature of love. Only if one knows the truth of love, which is the real realm of self, will a strong and tangled knot of life be untied. Only if one attains the height of love will liberation be attained. Such is the heart of all religions. The experience of self is only love, which is seeing only love, hearing only love, feeling only love, tasting only love, and smelling only love, which is bliss. I long for bhakti. I want more of this longing. Even realization does not matter for me. Let me be strong in my longing. If the longing is there, realization will be forced on you even if you do not want it. Long for it intensely so that the mind melts in devotion. After camphor burns away, no residue is left. The mind is the camphor. When it has resolved itself into the self without leaving even the slightest trace behind, it is realization of the self. I have faith in murti, dhyana, worship of form. Will it not help me to gain jnana? Surely it will. Upasana, meditation, helps concentration of mind. Then the mind is free from other thoughts and is full of meditated form. The mind then becomes one with the object of meditation, and this makes it quite pure. Then think, who is the worshipper? The answer is I. That is the self. In this way the self is ultimately gained. Worshipping the formless reality by thought is the best kind of worship. But when one is not fit for such formless worship of God, worship of form alone is suitable. Formless worship is possible only for people who are devoid of the ego form. Know that all the worship done by people who possess the ego form is only worship of form. The pure state of being attached to grace, self, which is devoid of any attachment, alone is one's own state of silence, which is devoid of any other thing. Know that one's ever abiding as the silence, having experienced it as it is, alone is true mental worship, manasika puja. Know that the performance of the unceasing, true, and natural worship in which the mind submissively established as the One Self, having installed the Lord on the heart throne, is silence, the best of all forms of worship. Silence, which is devoid of the assertive ego alone, is liberation. The evil forgetfulness of self which causes one to slip down from the silence alone is non-devotion, vibhakti. Know that abiding as that silence, with the mind subsided as non-different from self, is the truth of Shiva Bhakti, devotion to God. When one has completely surrendered oneself at the feet of Shiva, thereby becoming of the nature of the self, the resulting abundant peace in which there is not even the least room within the heart for one to make any complaint about one's defects and deficiencies, alone is the nature of supreme devotion. One thus becoming a slave to the Lord and one's remaining quiet and silent, devoid even of the egotistical thought, I am his slave, is self-abidance. And this is the supreme knowledge. Can spiritual seekers attain this goal in life if they are about the world absorbed in singing songs in praise of God? Or should they stay at one place only? It is good to keep the mind concentrated on one thing only wherever the person wanders. What is the use of keeping the body at one place if the mind is allowed to wander? Is a hetuka bhakti, devotion without a motive, possible? Yes, it is possible. Worshipping God for the sake of a desired object is worshipping that desired object alone. The complete cessation of any thought of a desired object is the first prerequisite in a mind that wishes to attain the state of Shiva. Sri Bhagavan outlines a way to find Krishna in the heart by prostrating to all and looking on all as the Lord himself. Is this the right path leading to self-realization? Is it not easier to adore Bhagavan in whatever meets the mind than to seek the supramental through the mental inquiry, who am I? Yes, when you see God in all, do you think of God, or do you not? You must certainly think of God if you want to see God all around you. Keeping God in your mind in this way becomes dhyana, meditation. And dhyana is the stage before realization. Realization can only be in and of the self. It can never be apart from the self. Dhyana must precede realization. But whether you make dhyana on God or on the self is immaterial, for the goal is the same. You cannot by any means escape the self. You want to see God in all but not in yourself. If everything is God, are you not included in that everything? Being God yourself, is it a wonder that all is God? This is the method advised in Sri Bhagavatam and elsewhere by others. But even for this practice, there must be a seer or thinker. Who is he? How to see God who is all-pervasive? To see God is to be God. There is no all apart from God for him to pervade. He alone is. The bhakta requires a God to whom he can do bhakti. Is he to be taught that there is only the self, not a worshipper, and the worshipped? Of course, God is required for sadhana. But the end of the sadhana, even in bhakti marga, the path of devotion, is attained only after complete surrender. What does it mean except that effacement of the ego results in self remaining as it always has been? Whatever path one may choose, the I is inescapable. The I that does the nishkama karma, motiveless acts. The I that pines for joining the Lord, from whom it feels it has been separated. The I that feels it has slipped from its real nature, and so on. The source of this I must be found out. Then all questions will be solved. If I also is an illusion, who then cast off the illusion? The I cast off the illusion of I, and yet remains as I. Such is the paradox of self-realization. The realized do not see any contradiction in it. Take the case of bhakti. I approach Ishwara and pray to be absorbed in him. I then surrender myself with faith and concentrate on him. What remains afterwards? In place of the original I, perfect self-surrender leaves a residuum of God in which the I is lost. This is the highest form of devotion, parabhakti, and surrender, and the height of vairagya, non-attachment. You give this up and that of my possessions. If you give up I and mine, instead all is given up at his stroke. The very seed of possession is lost. Thus the evil is nipped in the bud, or crushed in the germ itself. Dispassion, vairagya, must be very strong to do this. Eagerness to do it must be equal to that of a man kept under water, trying to rise up to the surface for his life.